a broken belief that I kept on neutralizing, 'cause it's surprising. Hello, this is Lion Teach. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Should have done that before, but here we are. Something about doing videos. I think it's a lot easier if I had somebody here to speak with. So I'll just speak to myself. Which, coincidentally enough, is really what I want to discuss today or tonight. So, I made my first video in the graveyard to symbolize the end and new beginnings. Today I am in the comfort of my own space. I got this cute little plant here showing growth. I don't think you see my shirt, but it does say bloom. We are in that season where things are blooming. Things are blooming. I would like to really just clear the space right now and set an intention on being authentic and really speaking from my heart space. So I'm just going to take a moment and just take some breaths, and then we'll get right into it. Okay. Today, as I walked around a very, very crowded mall, I could feel myself becoming agitated and extremely overwhelmed. I am somebody who is highly sensitive to energies, and it is very overwhelming to be in spaces with a lot of other people. Also, I like to put myself in these situations so I can get a better understanding of the collective and their feelings. I will try to avoid words like that because I really feel like there are a lot of influences or people who commonly use the same terminology, so I'm just going to authentically speak as I would to myself. Generally speaking, I love people. It is very difficult to be around people, especially those who do not resonate with me or share the same views or beliefs. But I have also tried to take this time to really see other people's perspective and put myself in their shoes so that I can understand in which space they're operating from. With that being said, collectively, really don't know how else I would word that. Here I am just jibber-jabbering again. We're just going to cut this whole part out anyway. Speaking from a perspective of someone who watches, I would say ever since I was a young girl, I have always been aware of others around me, and truly that's what allowed me to push myself beyond my boundaries and question the things that I do with the intention, the motive, and the reasoning. I would see people do things that I didn't agree with or I didn't like, and then reflect that back into myself and see the things that I was mirroring to myself from those people. Just to give you an example, if I saw someone who is super boisterous or very self-centered, I would then turn to myself and see how I may come across that way to others at times as well. So, periodically through my life, I have stopped and reflected many of times on the things that I do that may affect other people. Now that I'm in a different space energetically and really just in my life and what I'm doing currently, I don't feel I struggle as much with that as much as I struggle at just being a mirror for others. It is hard to hold that space for other people when truly all you're doing is mirroring to them who they are. I would like to say that I'm a walking mirror, which can become difficult until you do the work to see how to separate yourself from that perspective. If somebody's angry at me because I'm not responding the way that they want me to, I just mirror that back to them simply by not engaging in that interaction. I allow others to sit with their own shit. There's really no other way to put that. When I was in the mall today watching other people, it became even more obvious to me how unaware others are of themselves. There are people who, like myself, are in constant dialogue with themselves. In my mind, I am having a conversation constantly. And then there are people who are more outwardly approached, who tend to see and view everything in their outside world, and that has the impact of their dialogue. I don't know if I'm wording that in a way that makes sense for others to understand, so I'll give you another example. It's as if I'm having a constant conversation with me. If I were to have this be a visual representation, it would be me standing in front of me talking. Some people have conversations with another person. So instead of actually talking to themselves, they are then using other people to have a conversation with themselves. So really, maybe it's them standing there talking to an interpreter to then talk to themselves. It's like a third person's there, and they're looking to the third person saying, "This is what I want you to tell them." And that person is then turning to themselves and saying, "This is what's being told." I really feel that there's a need for people to understand how they communicate with themselves. I've never really understood not communicating within myself because that has been something that, again, at a young age, I have always done. I think a lot of the trauma and experiences of my life forced me to have these conversations with myself because there really wasn't anyone else there. I have taken that now as a gift. I realize that some people haven't been forced to be neglected or hadn't had the experience of truly being alone at a young age and may not have a soundboard to really see the difference. For me, let me just chill out for a second. For me, I feel as if the best gift someone could give themselves is the communication they have within themselves. We go through the spiritual communities who want you to talk to other people and higher selves and higher versions and angels and gods or whatever else they're getting people to preach with. Not preach, but they're preaching at people with. When in all actuality, it's a simple conversation that you have with yourself. And yes, if you want to label it something different, then by all means, but for the purpose of really getting out my point, I'm just going to simply refer to that as you. When we want to change things that we don't like about ourselves, and you're the type of person who is outwardly reflective and has that third person conversation with you for your inner dialogue, it's very difficult to change anything because it's just a circle spinning around, and it becomes chaos. When it's put very simply, and you're able to look at yourself standing in front of you and have this conversation, saying the things you don't like or the things that you want to change, it starts with that first step. Where do I have the control in this? Which part of this is within my power to change? For example, if I wanted to change my diet, and, well, let's back up a step. If I didn't like my appearance and felt I needed to lose weight, that conversation would start with that. I want to lose weight. The conversation back with myself would say, what steps can you take to lose weight? One being maybe your diet or what you consume. So at that point, it's still going back to you. Giving the opposite perspective of what it's like for somebody that does not have that inner dialogue or ability to, again, face oneself to have this conversation, it would look like them speaking to the third party saying, I want to lose weight. Then that party would then look to yourself and say, you need to lose weight. It would go back and forth until there really wasn't an answer, and it turned into shame and guilt, because at that point there wasn't a pinpoint of exactly what that entails, getting down to the bigger root of the issue. Another example, I don't like where I live. Currently, that is my life. So I have to ask myself, what do I have control over? What are the things that are within my power to change? Maybe a new job. Maybe settling old things that need to be to a closing point before I can leave the state that I'm currently in. Somebody having that conversation that does not speak with themselves turns into, I want to leave the state. And you can see how that then turns into this circle of conversation. Who do we have to ask? Who's going to help us? Where do we go? What? And you see how you're then giving away power that can be directly put back to reflect to you. When you can look at yourself and say, what is it that you want to change? How do we do that? Versus, this is what I want. Leaving a gap of space between that communication for doubts and fear to come in. This is what gets people in that loop. And I know that a lot of the reasoning behind that is our social media, the food that we're eating, whatever they're putting in our water, in our air, the chaos that comes with even just being in the population, because we're all in survival mode at this point. So it's very hard to navigate from a space of clarity when there are a multitude of distractions. I guess really the lesson that I'm trying to elaborate on today is the ability to have self conversations and really do that. People would make fun of me constantly because I'm somebody who likes to talk out loud to myself. And I still have a very difficult time trying to understand why people think that's so strange. I really try to understand, because I know that that's just something that they've never done or don't understand the benefit of. But I quite literally will speak out loud to myself. I will physically take myself in front of the mirror and I will say, hey, you seemed a little off today. Was something going on that you're not telling me about? And then I will quite literally respond back to myself and really try to answer the question. I think I kind of woke up a little bit off today. And there was that one thing that was weighing heavy on my mind. Maybe I let that get the better part of me today. And even having those tough love moments, because it doesn't have to be as severe or as serious as that conversation. It could be something simple where I'm in traffic and someone cuts me off and I call them a name, and I don't need to look at myself to do this, but saying out loud, "Hey, was that necessary?" Responding back with, "No, probably not. No, it definitely wasn't. You don't know what that guy's going through. Just another person." And it's kind of like that. So it sounds silly, but these are really just examples that I'm giving on how speaking outwardly to yourself can really help you, if you struggle to really have an internal dialogue with yourself. If it's easier to do it outwardly at first and have those conversations and be over theatrical about it, taking yourself to the mirror, having these weird back and forths, um, that it really does help you see how important those conversations with you are. I think that we live in a world now that you can have access to all kinds of information, all kinds of topics, so it's easy enough to Google an answer, but really ultimately, at the end of the day, you know best. And it's really having that true self belief in yourself. When you leave room for doubt and you question your ability to make the right decisions for yourself, that's when things tend to become more heavy than they need to be. It's as simple as, what do I need? How do I communicate my needs to myself? And how will I respond to help myself meet these needs? I don't like this relationship. Talk it out. I can't leave this relationship. Talk it out. Why do you feel that way? And once you start really pulling out these questions and having these be answered outwardly with yourself, where you're going back and forth, you start to see that you're getting deeper and deeper into your own consciousness. And that's where your true power is. That's where you can move. You cannot change from the outside. You have to change from the inside. You can attempt to change from the outside. You will be met with a force, because there is an undeniable amount of freedom for people to choose. Right? So you cannot forcibly change the outcomes from the outside of yourself. I like to picture an old quote that I remember seeing, and it was a picture of two men sitting in a jail cell. And one man, just miserable, probably scratching the lines for the days that he had sat in that cell, and the other man staring outside of a window and using his imagination, because there really wasn't that great of a view, but using his imagination to create something that gave him a sense of inner peace. Two men sitting in the same space were experiencing two separate experiences solely based off the mentality that each man carried from the inside. I've seen this in my everyday experiences as well, where if I'm having a bad day and I'm already a little testy, a little on edge, people are getting on my nerves, I tend to have a more negative approach when something not so great happens. Let's say I spill coffee on myself on the way into work. It is a catastrophe, and I am very much so a very dramatic person, which I tend to love about myself now. It took a while to get there. But anyway, really, it's just a matter of where you are. Because the same thing could happen and I could be in the best mood. Nothing's bringing me down. I spill coffee on myself. I'm laughing at myself. I'm moving through it. Something already bad happened, that bad, a matter of perspective. Something that I didn't like happened before that. There's this chain of events. I feel like the world's after me. All these things are going wrong. I spill coffee on myself. Oh, great. Here's another thing. You know? So you can really see that within yourself when you have these experiences. Even with other people, right? You could be having a conversation with somebody, they say something you don't like, you're easily offended that day. Some days where you're within within your own energies, you're feeling strong, you're feeling good. Someone says something you don't agree with, you can have a solid viewpoint and still respect that person. So, pause. I think it's essential to have those inner conversations. Again, I hope that what I've explained others can understand. Because I'm new at expressing what happens in my head. But if you feel like you feel like someone who may benefit from the practice of self reflection or self inner dialogue, I highly recommend doing the mirror exercise where you go to yourself in the mirror and you ask some very clear questions. I wouldn't even leave them kind of vague, I would use them to be direct. How are you feeling today? What did you mean when you said this? And this is to yourself. So, the same way you would approach somebody in a situation that you needed more clarity in, I would suggest truly having that. I totally lost my train of thought. It's just like that. There you go. I would go to myself. So, why do you think you lost your train of thought? Such a silly representation. Oh, it's probably because I have just looked at the time and realized I've been going for 24 minutes and don't want to carry on much longer. So, I trailed off in my thoughts. It's simple, really, but it's difficult. And that's something that, again, very oxymoron, the irony is there. It is super, super simple, but it is hard work. Once you're consistent in what you do, you will start seeing results. It takes time to build these new neural pathways through our brain, and that's a new concept for me too. But really, it takes time. Remember to have self love and consideration for yourself. If it's easier for you to go outward and have that compassion and caring understanding for others, make sure that you're willing to do that for yourself. When you look in the mirror, also have those conversations of, I'm proud of you. Be able to laugh at yourself. I do it constantly. I have like the worst embarrassments with people because I will be in my head deep in thought, and sometimes someone will talk to me and I will be totally in a whole nother space. And then later I'll sit and kind of fester on that interaction. So, in order to move through that energy, I'll go to myself. I'll say, hey, and I don't need the mirror anymore, but I definitely still speak out loud to myself often. But I will simply go, hey, you know, earlier when you said that thing, yes, I remember. Well, it was kind of silly for you to even say that. And then I'll come back with, yeah, I know, but I said it. So it is what it is. And then I will seriously laugh with myself to move through these emotions. And it's similar with things when situations come up in our life and they can be stressing or triggering. We have to have the ability to have those conversations in a gentle, loving way. But humor is also a great way to bring about that conversation with yourself. I used to be super, super tough love with me. And it was constantly berating, and how could you, and why would you, and you shouldn't have, and everything under the sun, right? When I changed my approach within those conversations with myself, I was able to see how much I really do love myself and how much I can honor myself just like I would somebody that I care about, somebody that I admire. I truly was able to see how I am valued just as much as every person that I have valued in my life. And even more so, because in that space of love for myself, it it allowed me to give that to others. And it's beautiful, right? Sorry, I laugh because it really is just, it's so beautiful to be able to see somebody do something and I'm like, how dare you do that? That is so, But being able now to be like, why would you do that? Oh, you know what? They probably, and who knows, sometimes you can't answer the questions, but when you ask them, it's a way to clear some tension around situations. Clear the tension around situations when we're able to have those conversations. So we began at the beginning. I just want to wrap us up here. I was in the mall, crazy busy, watching people not being self aware. In my mind, in my inner dialogue, I wanted to be able to express outwardly how important it is for all of us to have that inner awareness. But why would some people not have it? That was something new for me. Maybe others haven't learned to do that. Maybe others haven't had, experiences that shaped their ability to do that. And I wanted to express how I have found ways to truly get into those inner conversations with myself and have those tough conversations for self growth, self love, self empowerment, and also be able to impact my community and others around me by being able to give them the compassion and love and understanding that they also so graciously deserve. Anyway, we're wrapping it up. This was Lion Teach. Lesson number 1, inner dialogue, inner conversation, inner strength, inner wisdom. I can go on. Now I'm going on. Now I'm getting off track. But you get the point. And I really hope that this helps somebody out there that's struggling to have found ways to make changes in their life. And maybe you're 3-4 years in from wanting to see a difference in something and you haven't yet. I truly, again, suggest having those tough conversations with you. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you next time around. I will be starting to do videos at least once a week. I'm really going to try to be good about that. Get some lesson plans in place because I kind of just wing it. A million things come into my mind, and that's where I need to be more self. What's the word I'm looking for? Disciplined. Anyway, I love you. You got this. Don't give up. You are not wasting your time. You're just finding the right way to climb. Take care for now.